Can two men have a baby? Okay, that may sound like a trick question, but believe it or not, it's one that I've gotten on more than one occasion. So stick around and we'll talk about it. What's up? I'm Corlandos Scott, a third-party reproduction attorney in Los Angeles, and that simply means that my practice revolves around helping people grow their families through assisted reproductive technologies like egg donation and surrogacy. And in today's episode, I'm going to show you a take on two men having a baby that you probably haven't heard of, and we'll also talk about the more conventional option for two men having a baby. Let's do it. Now, this question is so intriguing to me that I want to give it an equally intriguing first answer. So for a moment, let's take the answer of third-party reproduction or assisted reproductive technologies like egg donation, embryo donation off the table. Let's go beyond those. Can two men participate in one birth? Well, have you ever heard the term heteropaternal superfecundation? Yeah, heteropaternal superfecundation. Although it sounds like it, I assure you that it is in no way related to supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. At least, I don't think so. Anyway, heteropaternal superfecundation is an extremely rare phenomenon, and it happens when one egg is fertilized during a woman's cycle, but also a second egg from the same menstrual cycle is additionally fertilized by the sperm of a different man. Now, this results in a woman being pregnant by two separate men at the same time. Crazy, right? Yeah, heteropaternal superfecundation. Say that 3 times fast. Simply put, this phenomenon means that two different men are participating as genetic fathers in the same pregnancy. Essentially, it's twins with two different fathers. Although it has a really fancy name, believe it or not, this concept is not new. It existed as far back as ancient Greek mythology. As the myths would have it, the Hellenistic religion had many cases of superfecundation. Get this, Alcmene, while still the wife of Amphitryon, slept with Zeus. Scandalous. Well, this little menage a trois resulted in Alcmene giving birth to 2 sons, one by her husband and one by Zeus. But Alcmene wasn't the only one in these streets. Leda, while still the wife of Tyndareus, also slept with Zeus. Zeus, ugh. But not deliberately, because Zeus slept with Leda in the guise of a swan, so we can't put that on her. But anyway, Leda also gave birth to 2 daughters, one by her husband and one, the famous Helen of Troy, by Zeus. So this whole heteropaternal superfecundation goes way back. But okay. Those are just ancient myths. We can actually, though, jump into the real world and fast forward to present times, and we can see examples of heteropaternal superfecundation. Here are a couple examples. Back in 1982, twins who were born with 2 different skin colors were discovered to be conceived as a result of heteropaternal superfecundation. Fast forward to a case that happened since I've been in the field of assisted reproductive technologies. In 2016, an IVF implanted surrogate gave birth to 2 children. One genetically unrelated child from the embryo that was implanted for the surrogacy, and a biological child from her own egg and her husband's sperm. Side note, this is why surrogacy contracts typically require the surrogate to abstain from sexual intercourse until after the embryo transfer is determined to have succeeded or failed after we get the post-transfer pregnancy test results. Now, the surrogate in that case, she resumed sexual intercourse prior to the doctor releasing her to do so. But it just so happened that she had ovulated around the same time that they did the embryo transfer. So one of her eggs was present and ready for action at the same time after the transfer had occurred. And it worked. The problem was that the intended parent couple thought that they were having twins until the babies were born and they were clearly of 2 different ethnic heritages. That's my intriguing answer to the question of, can two men have a baby? But I bet you wanted to talk about the medical and legal advances that allow a set of fathers to share in the family building process in a bit more intentional way, huh? Well, okay. We can talk about it if you insist. But before we do, if you've never heard of the term heteropaternal superfecundation prior to this video, then you've got to give me a like. You got to hit that like button because I know you learned something new. I did when I was researching for the video. And go ahead and share it with a friend. You can even send them a message saying, bet you never heard of heteropaternal superfecundation, have you? Yeah, that's bound to get them to open whatever message that was you sent them. Okay, let's get serious. Corlandos, answer the question, whether two men can have a baby. Well, okay. The answer is, there's an obvious answer, and then there's an ART, or Assisted Reproductive Technologies answer. The obvious answer is no. No, two men can't have a baby. Although, I will digress here to say that it is becoming common to see transgender men or men who were assigned female at birth deliver children. But that's another topic for another day, so allow me to be more accurate. Obviously, two cisgender men whose gender identity matches their sex assigned at birth, cannot have a baby without the aid of modern science, medicine, and law. Now's a good time to discuss the two types of infertility. There's physiological infertility and situational infertility. Now, physiological infertility is infertility due to biological conditions. This can be things like low sperm count, low sperm motility, endometriosis, polycystic ovary syndrome, PCOS, failure to ovulate, and the list goes on and on. But in a nutshell, it's when there is a dysfunction in the person's body that makes them unable to conceive. Situational infertility, on the other hand, which is also sometimes called social infertility, is when a single individual desires to have a child, but for obvious reasons, the situation of their no partner status makes fertility impossible. You can't reproduce by yourself. But situational infertility would also apply to same-sex couples and their need for a gamete donor of the opposite gender. So looking at the question of whether two men who by definition experience situational infertility can have a baby, the answer is yes, with the help of assisted reproduction. Now, naturally, it takes an egg and sperm to create an embryo. That becomes a fetus, and that is eventually delivered as a baby. I mean, that's like, fifth grade biology, right? And it's no secret that men don't ovulate. So for two men to have a baby, then they are first going to need the help of an egg donor. So egg donation is the first step in the assisted reproduction journey that's needed for two men to have a baby. Now, most same-sex male couples work with a donor agency to find their donor. And a donor agency is simply a company that matches hopeful parents with donors who are willing to donate their eggs. Now, there's no universal guideline for who donor agencies will or will not accept, but most donor agencies do have their own guidelines that they abide by. So be sure to find out what your potential agency looks for in order to accept a donor into their program. Now, once you choose the donor, she's going to have a physical examination and a psychological examination. You'd also be wise to have her do a genetic screening to make sure she's not a carrier for some disease for which you are also a carrier. Now, side note, once all that's done, you can start the legal process. And that's where someone like me comes in. Once I receive word that your agency has received a medical clearance letter from the clinic, we then start drafting that egg donor contract. And here's a pro tip. You don't want to start drafting the legal contract between you and the donor before you get medical clearance. And the reason for that is, God forbid that your donor failed her clearance or her medical screening process. Well, then you've paid money to an attorney to draft it and the donor's attorney to review it. And after all the legal process is finished, you still have a donor that can't work with you because she failed medical. So wait for legal. Wait until after you get that medical clearance. Now, after the legal process is finished, we issue what we call a legal clearance letter back to the doctor and say, Doctor, there's a legal contract between these two parties that allows this woman to donate her eggs to these parents. Now, once the doctor has that, they start the retrieval cycle, and that can take anywhere between 10 days to 3 weeks. Now, you have eggs, you've created embryos, but they still have to go somewhere, and neither of the hopeful fathers possesses that somewhere. So in comes the surrogate or gestational carrier. The early stages of the gestational carrier process is similar to the egg donor process in many, many ways. So most hopeful fathers work with an agency to help them match with a surrogate that's right for them. And again, they will review profiles, they'll select candidates based on the information that's provided to them by the agency. But in surrogacy, they're going to go a step further and they're going to interview the candidate in order to get a feel for her personality, a feel for her presentation. Remember, the donor process lasts around maybe a month, but her genes are with you for a lifetime in your child. Although there's no lifelong connection to the surrogate, she's going to be an intricate part of your life for at least a year and maybe even more. So it stands to reason that you should interview her, get to know her even on a personality level. Now, after you match with your surrogate, you move to the next phase of surrogacy. Now, this is the phase in the process where you'll probably want to pick up the phone and call me to hire me to draft a legal contract between yourself and your surrogate. And this is what I call the legal or contract negotiation phase. And just like the egg donation process, we get a contract agreeable to both parties, they sign it, and then I issue clearance to the fertility doctor to begin the medical process. And that gets us to phase 3. All right, phase 3 is what I call the fun time phase. Now we're talking about getting and staying pregnant. So the preparation and execution of the embryo transfer is what we're doing in stage 3. Now, once the embryo transfer is successful and you're pregnant, then what are you going to do? Well, it's pretty much the most lovingly patient game of wait and see that you've ever played. Now we know that we're looking at the next 9-month period to make sure that the gestation period is complete. Also, as a same-sex male couple, here's something else to keep in mind as you're looking to go through surrogacy. Every state has its own laws around surrogacy. Some states are not friendly to surrogacy arrangements at all. Some are sort of friendly, but not friendly towards same-sex couples going through surrogacy. So make sure that you consult with someone regarding the legal nuances of the state where you're looking to do surrogacy. It would be heartbreaking to do all that work and then run into legal troubles being able to take your child home from the hospital. So if you're looking to grow your family through surrogacy, I have something special for you. It's a free gift. It's called the Surrogacy Roadmap, and it walks you through each step of the surrogacy process from beginning to end. And if you want it, all you got to do is simply click the link below to be taken to thesurrogacyroadmap.com, and you'll get your hands on that valuable resource for free. I'll see you there.